Trust the Whaling Consortium. Build to last. The Whaling Consortium. Builder of nations.
Alrighty. Hello, everybody. It is everyone's favorite time of year. It is spoiler season. Apologies. For the next couple of days, I'm not streaming from my normal location. I'm coming to you live from a cabin out in the woods. But, you know, spoilers are here and they wait for no one. So here I am. I've got two excellent guests on tonight, both Ginevra and Essexmcintosh. If you could both say hello, that'd be great.
Hello, I'm Ginevra. We're both Australians today. I'm a player in this is the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. But if you're outside Australia, you probably know that as Sydney. We might, probably you want to talk about this a bit more later. I started playing around Salvage Memories kind of time.
Very cool. Yeah, you're ahead of all my questions. But yeah, Essexmcintosh, could you introduce yourself? Or I think I may have even said your name wrong, but would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about maybe when you started playing?
No, you said it right. You can just call me Essex Foe. I started playing at around about System Gateway. Started off with the GLC tournament for that, and only upwards from there, right?
Fantastic. And uh, am I correct? You have some role in the Netrunner community at the moment, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh yeah. So I'm probably one of the people that you see about when GLC runs a tournament. I'm technically not part of the GLC staff, but I do manage and help the GLC judge team run all of the operations that need to happen. The really cool thing about the people having a chat today is Ginevra is the contact mod for our team, so we kind of handle the circuit openers together. So
Yeah.
hello, welcome. Yes, we know there's a circuit opener sometime this year. Who knows when?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, as I'm learning, OP is very difficult. So it is a lot of effort to put this stuff together, and running ongoing leagues is a big deal. Ginevra, you wear a ton of hats. You're in NSG. You're very active in
Yes.
GLC.
Yeah. I'm a modmin for GLC, and I do some of the leagues. I do the Standard League if anyone wants to join, the Eternal League if anyone wants to join, and also Netrunner. But I wouldn't say I'm kind of the best person for doing judging, particularly not on technicalities or card interactions or anything. So that's where Essex comes in and is really, really needed. Yeah. I
We have
also,
a great team of judges as well because I've only started with System Gateway, so I'm not the most experienced judge on the block.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I should say you two have both done a lot of work to make good resources for people that want to learn about judging, and there's a channel in GLC for people that want to start learning for judges. And I am probably, when OP gets around to it, hopefully sometime in the near future. I was about to say a timeline and then realized I cannot commit to that. We'll put together a first time judges guideline, and we're going to steal heavily from all the work you guys have put together. But we've now vamped for a good 5 minutes, and I know people are here to talk about spoilers, hear hot takes, and share their hot takes. So Daily Cast is going to be just about every night that spoiler season is happening this year. I will have on two guests. If you're still interested, and I haven't contacted you about nights before, I believe Wednesday. There is a form. I should probably go and get that. I will do that in a moment. Actually, I can just get this right now. If you are interested in coming on to Daily Casts, you can just reply to, or you can just fill out this survey that I'm copying in and pasting right now because I'm very professional. Apparently copy and paste is fighting me today. That's always fun. There we go. All right. But a bunch of you who, if you've already submitted the survey, I have picked you for a day. And if I haven't contacted you, it's because I'm trying to do too many things at once. But I'd love to have more people on. It's always great to have people. But the goal of every daily cast is that we talk about the scoops from that day. We talk about, ideally, the content that was put out on that day. And then we, have a nice time for however long that takes us. So, of course, the first thing that we saw in spoiler season is the first thing I want to talk about in Daily Cast is the return of everyone's favorite, the card fan. So we got 6 cards fanned out. I think this was last week when they announced the date of the start of spoiler season. And I thought it was great to see these return for those people who were playing and Ginevra and Essex for before your time. But FFG, when they would announce both a data pack or usually a cycle, they would do a card fan very similar to this. But of course, they were releasing like 20 cards at a time over the course of 6 months. So it was like sometimes they would put a pack 6 card in the card fan and partially obscure the text, and it was a lot of fun to try and backwards figure this out.
Cool.
So this was a fun little homage to those.
And also, I reckon, really, really carefully done. So you've got just enough that you're interested, but then kind of can't quite see it. Or
Yeah, I
it's a
think
fun tease.
Yeah, Spencer put in a lot of work, I think, at cutting and cropping everything in just the right
Yeah,
order.
and
So the
Conrad.
cards are unedited,
Yeah.
but still troublesome to get through. All right, thanks, Stefan. Hopefully that helped. This helps a little. I'm trying to play with volume levels because I was getting some static. But do the two of you have any thoughts about this card fan before we talk about the one card we can see absolutely every single word of text?
I think it's like I just admire okay, I suppose I should say I'm also part of the narrative and art teams for Null Signal Games, and I can see the amount of thought of which cards got selected and how it kind of shows a little bit about the set with the like explosive cards and the cards in the Amazon rainforest, I guess, and the animals and street scene and favela and like some of the fun. And I think looking at the air blades and then looking at one of the other things that have been spoiled, then there's like a little bit of information in the air blades card that like comes out later. I think it's very, very cool.
I know that a lot of people have been very keen on their guests for their activities. The word, the word I've been hearing is
You're breaking up a little, Essex.
am I better?
You're breaking up a bit.
Oh, that's not good.
Of course, it was
Let's
working
see if
before.
we can get this.
Okay,
We'll
that's
have technical issues.
yeah. Would not be a daily cast without technical issues. So
Yeah.
you were coming through a little bit clearer just a moment ago. Okay, I think we'll give Essex maybe a minute to get
Sure.
situated,
Sure.
and we will start on wheels. So this
Cool.
is the card that we can fully see in the spoiler set. So this is Hannah Wheels Pilantara, and boy, you're going to hear me mispronounce a lot of names for this cycle.
And I'm
This
going
is
to be embarrassed that I haven't fully completed the guide for how to say things. Although I will say, if you look up the Wikipedia for that, it's kind of her last name. It's kind of interesting.
Okay.
I recommend it.
Well, that's a good recommendation. And for the spoiler video that I have coming out towards the end of next week, I did do some looking up, and there's definitely some good little bits and bobs in the lore and stuff. So, but Hannah Wheels
I'm going to
Pilantara.
say Zeplintra. It would probably be the Wikipedia entry to look up.
Sorry, what should people look up?
And that. ZE and then that, I think.
Okay.
I'll have
Very
to
cool.
double check myself. But I think that's right.
So this is a 2-cost resource connection, and it has 2 abilities: click, gain a click, run a remote server. When that run ends, if it was unsuccessful, take 1 tag. Use this ability only once per turn. Then as a second ability, click and trash, gain 2 clicks, and remove a tag. And then it's 2 influence, and the flavor text is, how far shall we go this time? And the art is someone having a good time on a scooter being chased by what I assume is a friendly dog. So This card was definitely a winner for early art and flavor fun.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the colorful buildings and stuff in the background. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how like the that is like a big part of world building, that like a lot of Netrunner buildings are just kind of dry, gray, drab, 'cause seems to be constantly being rained
Yeah,
on buildings. But that's really not what the architecture would be in these areas. So it's fun to
yeah,
see that brought to life.
yeah.
But yeah, I guess, Ginevra, what do you think of this card?
Um, I guess I'm like the first bit. Okay, so it doesn't kind of cost a click, and if it's unsuccessful, take a tag. Like, I don't know if I want to do that, but all right, only once per turn. Um, but then I can kind of see you could remove the tag, I guess, if you trash the card, or I suppose if you have other tag removal. Um, I think at the moment I'm like a bit confused as to why I want to do this, to be honest. But maybe like I know people like Zaya tag me type stuff, and other kind of tag me type things. So maybe that's what like maybe that would be where it would fit and where people would enjoy it.
Yeah, I think
What
I
do
no,
you
I
reckon?
I think that's a really good spot. So I was playing. We were doing a little bit of a draft here, and someone snuck this card into the cube, and then I ended up drafting like a DLR tag mill deck, and this card fit in super well because it was a way to clicklessly gain a tag. Then you could DLR and then shake the tag at the end of the turn, and you're in a pretty good spot. So like and if we think about like actual current standard Netrunner, ignoring rotation and stuff, for like your counter surveillance style decks, being able to clicklessly gain a tag because you make a run on the remote and then you can just jack out so the run is unsuccessful. You can just
Oh yeah.
grab a tag.
You can just purely drag out and not do anything. You can
Yeah.
almost like ensure non-success
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
if they've got ice. If they've got ice.
Even if they don't have ice, you have a jack out window before the run is
Oh,
successful.
okay. Cool.
Yeah. Now, I think the use case against Glacier, I think, is a little bit trickier, but it's a good point that you can kind of, this is clickless, so you can still probe their remote, let them spend defenses on it, and then you still have stuff to go. And then I saw Aksu in chat mentioning, against an asset deck, this just says go and check the card they put down at no cost, right? If they just installed a card naked in a new server, which is a pretty common play pattern for asset decks, is to try and go like draw a card, install two cards, good luck. This is going to be a nice little tool in that matchup for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder whether you keep it around. Yeah, I suppose you could keep it around and accumulate a bunch of tags and then only remove one. Or I suppose have a number of copies and just put them out again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting question, and one that Andre was asking in the chat as well, is like, can you play resources that give you tags without like without any kind of protection cards? So, and apologies, I can't pull up cards very well because I'm not working from my primary computer at the moment. But there was a card called Wireless Net Pavilion that just said, as an additional, the trash cost, I forget exactly how the text work, but like the trash cost of resources is increased by 2. So the corpse click trash, a resource ability would cost a click and 4 credits rather than a click and 2. And so that was the big way that DLR, data leak reversal decks, would work, because data leak reversal was a 0 cost resource that just said click, trash the top card of R&D, activate this ability only if you're tagged. And so you would install that card. There were some conditions on that, and then just like start jamming the DLR button, milling the corp. And you would protect it with your wireless net pavilions and then some other cards that let you protect resources. So maybe we'll see more of cards in that vein, or maybe we won't see that much tag me stuff. And this is meant to be a little bit of a penalty for just using this to like always clicklessly run high ice remotes, and more as just like an asset tech card and an anti-tag tech card. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm wondering what you can combine it with that you would want kind of an unsuccessful run, or you wouldn't mind an unsuccessful run. Like I'm thinking about, does this would work with Bravado, for instance, wouldn't it?
Well, you can't really play the run event and use this clickability. Yeah.
Okay.
But chat is calling out stuff like Aeneas Informant, which says whenever you access a card and do not trash it, you can reveal it and gain a credit. And so you could use Hannah's to clicklessly run a server, show the corp the card they put down, and then you get to gain some credits and even get Amakua counters, things like that. So, this will if you're doing it. If you have like a Yusuf installed, the Yusuf will also get virus counters. Like there's ways to get successful run triggers that on like other cards that you could use to stack and kind of gain clickless triggers, which could be kind of cool. And Essex, I see that you said you might be back. Do we want to give it another shot?
Hello.
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
So
You're there.
I think we really need to build around the tag aspects of this card because, yes, getting a clickless run is very strong. But the issue I keep seeing is that you can't combine it with any of the other run events. We've got cards like, oh goodness, Swift, I think it is, the red bike from Ashes. It's a great card, but it struggles a lot. Yes, it's eating that console slot, but it's just on the edge, and you can use that with a run event.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Is
So-
that you probably do have to do something with the tag. I think like the only stuff we've seen with tags lately has been counter surveillance, but maybe this is hinting at something still to come. Be interesting to see. Because we missed you earlier. Was there any other cards you want to talk about in the card fan before we maybe hop on to the brand new spoilers for the day?
Goodness.
Yeah, the capybara is ultra cute.
Yeah, Capybara definitely stealing the show.
A quick note that people are speculating that Pivot might be a near print of, oh goodness gracious, what's that card that goes and finds a event from hand?
Consulting visit.
Like Gaslight?
Yeah, No, consulting visit.
Consulting
There's
visit.
been
Oh,
some
okay.
chatter that they think that's the card. I highly doubt it, but there's a lot of hype about them. So yeah.
Yeah, Consulting Visit was a huge role player in the meta for a long time. So I wouldn't be totally shocked to see something like it come back, though this one's costed differently. So I wouldn't be surprised for the effect to be at least a little bit different, because I didn't feel like anyone looked at Consulting Visit and said, no, this card's too expensive to see play. But you never know. I'll note, like, people think they know basically every word on Airblade X JSRF edition. We don't quite know if what types of damage it prevents, so I'm not talking about it in length today. Though Ginevra did allude to a symbol on the left part of the card that I think we will see in just a little bit. But I think, we've talked about stuff that's been out in the public eye for a long time. Let's maybe move on to some of the fresh spoilers for today, which is, of course, Mercury, Chrome Liberator, or it looks like a criminal identity that we get for this new set. This is a zero link 4MU identity Biroid subtype, and it is a 4515. And then whenever you breach HQ or R&D during a run, if you did not break any subroutines during that run, you may access one additional card. Use this ability only once per turn. So I'll say Atom players don't have to be completely sad. We did get a new Biroid. It's probably not going to fulfill exactly the same niche, but it is at least a Biroid representation in Netrunner.
Yeah.
Essex,
I
any
really
initial
like
thoughts on this cards?
I guess
Then
my thoughts are
you go
first off
first.
about the character, which I really enjoy because like that's where my first thoughts are. I really love the bit I decided I am free. Like I think that's I don't know. I really enjoy that. I also for context, I think it in some of the articles it's been pointed out that they are a Nico Biroid that we've seen on Seamless Launch and Nico Campaign, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun little tie back to an earlier set.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the I decided I am free is a really resonant message for a lot of people in the community. So it's cool to see that manifested on a card. Essex,
Yeah.
we were trying to talk over each other a little, so I want to make sure you get a shot to come in.
I was basically trying to say the same thing as Ginevra. Fantastic lore on the character. Great to see some non-binary representation, especially with the knowledge that our other they them pronouns character is likely to disappear from standard in a few years. So
Yeah. I guess we should talk about the card mechanics. Like it's really cool to get an extra card. Like multi-access is always really, really cool. But then it's like you don't break any subroutines, and I'm like, oh, what do you have to go through to get this advantage? Like, I my first thought is maybe you put it with Bankar or something like that, and like are expecting to just like focus on or are designing your deck so that it's okay if you receive a lot of damage in that way. Can I ask, does this work if you so you don't break subroutines so you can't click through like if they're Biroid ice that doesn't work. That's
Yeah,
right, is it? Like so
so
you can't use the benefit of clicking on Biroid ice.
yes,
How
because
else do you
the
avoid?
text on Biroids is lose a click, break one subroutine on this ice. So unfortunately, not Nico, Mercury, still beats up Biroids in digital space, or maybe has a conversation with them in the same way and can't sneak through.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's fair.
I think there's a couple of combinations that are I think kind of interesting. I saw someone talk about how love to win games on turn one. It's a little bit difficult, I think, because Mercury's ability is limited to only once per turn. I will say, and Jamie, I say this with love, I really dislike the fact that uses ability only once per turn goes at the end of a lot of abilities. I get why it's done. I just don't like it because it gets me very excited for an ability, and then it just turns out to be really fair. And that's fine, but we always fantasize for a minute and then get to the final sentence and it's a letdown. But I think this ID ability is pretty interesting, and it combos with a lot of different stuff. I think something that's kind of interesting to me is if you play a Docklands Pass, which I think is like a card you want to play in most Crim decks,
Yeah.
you can turn an inside job into a legwork that also beats the first piece of ice, assuming there's only one ice on each cube, which is surprisingly common in a lot of Netrunner games, which I think is kind of cool. And that inside job also gives you equity on them trying to rush through a scoring remote. So like you've got some like fairly big, at least it seems to me, kind of early game pressure.
Definitely. This can be used with Jailbreak, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it can. And I was also starting to think, do I want to import Stargate and like, does if I put this with Stargate, do I get extra cards on extra cards? Assuming I do all the criteria, like not breaking any subroutines.
Yeah,
So
so
Stargate doesn't break, so you won't trigger Mercury on the Stargate run.
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So Essex was saying, like, yeah, you don't, it replaces the breach. So you could combine this with something like Conduit, and get your Conduit going a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think what other fun access cards. Oh, actually, one good one is also, I believe, and maybe Jamie will correct me on this. This should work. I believe Mercury works with Sneak Door Beta because you're breaching HQ during a run, and so you get to see 2 cards when you drop that Sneak Door. Now, admittedly, you can't do the strong play of drop the Sneak Door and get that access a bunch of times, but you get a really impactful Sneak Door run. So. That could be kind of
Jamie, I think you're saying, yeah, you can do that,
fun. Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this is it's interesting because this is a Crim identity that does not gain or deny credits on it, which has been I'm gonna say a tricky space. You know, I think Leela was the only Crim identity that saw play that hasn't generated either card or credit value. So we will have to see how Mercury pans out, but I think it's going to be a really exciting runner to run with. And I'm, you know, Bahram Wu is saying this is going to be prime jank tube. I think this is going to be something I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with, because I really enjoy, like, I do enjoy playing my Shaper engine decks, but if I'm not doing that, I want to just be throwing my head at the corp, and this seems pretty great.
One of the things I
And I
really
guess
appreciate. Yeah, so one of the things I really appreciate about the card is that even though it doesn't have that sort of criminals like money aspect, as a person who started with System Gateway, the card really reminds me of Zaya in terms of what
yeah,
abilities targeting, and even that goodness gracious awful whenever blah blah blah, only do this once per turn clause.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I will say, I do appreciate the whenever you breach once per run does allow you to use this ability. Like you can do something like play a diversion of funds, divert all their funds, and then make a run on make a run on R&D and see the extra card, so that you didn't like fizzle your ability by using a run event that replaced an access, which is pretty good.
yeah. Yeah, it very much reminds me of Zaya as well. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Very cool. Do either of you have anything you want to say more about this, or do we want to hop on to the last card that was spoiled today?
Sure.
Yeah, so we have Hermes. This is a symbol, we said to keep an eye out for. This was on Airblade's JSRF, excuse me, in the background. And here it is again. So this is a 2-cost console, unique Hermes. It gives +1 MU, and its text is simply, whenever an agenda is scored or stolen, add 1 unresed card to HQ. Limit 1 console per player, and it is 3 influence. So for those of you not familiar, this is the whenever an agenda is scored or stolen, add one unread card to HQ is verbatim the text from a classic criminal runner, probably one of the strongest criminal runner IDs of all time, of Leela. And it's fun to see that ability. That was it was super swingy back on the console, which is a slot that is kind of used for a lot of different things. And so it's interesting to see how this console lands.
I think it did like I didn't play when Layla was around a lot, but did that actually like kind of change how corps behave a bit? And I'm wondering whether that was because it was the ID, whether a console has as much effect or not. Did corps kind of play around that a lot or not really?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it depended a lot, of course, because that's the answer to every question ever is it depends, right?
Yeah.
But less sarcastically, there one thing that people would sometimes do is if they were trying to score a 4-2 agenda, is they would install advance it the turn before they score it. That way, on their next turn, they can advance, score it, and then have a click left to return the card that was bounced by Leela's ability. Because if if the Leela player was behind, something they could maybe do is they could kind of sit back and never give the corp the opportunity to res the ice that was protecting their central servers. And then when the corp went to score, they would say, oh, good, I'll bounce that one piece of ice protecting HQ or that one piece of ice protecting R&D. And now I get a turn where I get to run wild. And I would not be shocked if Hermes gives us some of the same game patterns.
That'd be cool. I was also thinking, like, I would like to bounce ice, but this would also apply to assets that are asset or upgrade, I suppose they are, that are unresed or whatever like that as well.
Yep. Yeah, and one of the
Maybe
other
not
powerful
as
things
significantly.
that people are leading to is that if you let's say I run R&D and snipe an agenda, I get to bounce, and maybe I'm playing Mercury, so I have 2 shots at it. I can then bounce the ice protecting HQ and come in for a very clean diversion. Or often the worst thing is because, as I was saying, a corp might install and advance an agenda. Well, if they steal an agenda somewhere else, that agenda is usually unresed. And so that can get bounced back to hand as well. Which
And all
is,
your investment is gone.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Essex, any thoughts from this card initially, either art or gameplay or whatever?
I'm in a similar bandwagon with the whole. I didn't play when Leela was out, but and sorry to be the pessimist today, but I see Hermes and I think of Pantograph. And it's the same cost, and it's got that same whenever an agenda is scored or stolen effect, and we've seen these lovely Shaper cards, and the thing that the Shaper decks struggle to do to get those figures is finding and installing those cards. So I do think that, yes, this ability is probably powerful enough to see play compared to what we've seen elsewhere. But it still is going to be a bit of a struggle compared to an ID where you have it ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I do think that's a very good point, that there is a difference between this text being really good because it's active from the very first turn of the game to I have to go and find this. I have to put some number of copies of this in my deck, and then I have to install it, and then it gets to start doing stuff for me, and that is a big difference. So yeah, I think that's gonna be a good point. I also think it's interesting. People are both Andre and I think Aksu were both mentioning you can potentially play this outside of Criminal. Like it is 3 influence, but it's going to be a pretty impactful card when it lands, and so you could think about splashing this out of faction. And Aksu even calling out Tau. So if they have an unrezzed ice, you could swap it to a server you want to get to, and then bounce it back to their hand, because you get to order your score and stolen triggers. So that seems like it could be a bit of fun. And the other, like, is this a console that like the two of you are excited to try out, or more like, oh, I kind of want to see someone else figure out this first?
When people mentioned doing it with Tau, I was like, that could be fun. I don't know if it, like, I don't know if it works in the sense that it would be easy to win games with it, but I think it would be kind of fun as a, like, I'm feeling like annoying the corp today kind of thing. So yeah, I am. I will definitely enjoy playing around with this one. I don't know whether it stays in the like competitive deck I make or not. Maybe it does. Like I think because I didn't experience Leela, the whenever an agenda is scored or stolen, I kind of look at that and go, oh, it's rarely. But maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm underestimating a lot because I haven't experienced that.
Yeah, I guess, probably most games that are going to be close, which is probably where this console is going to matter the most, right? Both sides are probably scoring 4 agendas before one side wins. And actually, with stuff like Global Food Initiative going, we might even see more games where both players are trying to score 4 agendas each. So you could potentially even get something like 6 triggers off this before the game ends. That could definitely be, that maybe starts making this look more appealing if the game shifts towards fewer 5/3s and more X2s. I think this could be interesting.
And I think there is a bit of a meta call that Crims could make, in that it appears that Sports Metal might be a good deck to play this against.
Yep,
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah, because then as they try to make aggressive plans, like it's one of those interesting things where like you kind of intentionally don't want to run HQ for a bit, because as they go and score, you can push back their tempo on the HQ and reduce their defenses and hopefully make a bigger deal out of it than they were getting from you. I guess
In its sports metal, you can just run HQ and then they'll draw the cards for you to access anyway. Lots of fun.
yeah, very much so. Yeah, do you think this goes in Mercury? Do you think this goes in other crims? I guess that's and I'm not going to hold, neither of the, I'm not going to hold you. This is a weird ability to evaluate, so I'm not going to come back in, 6 months and go, you were wrong. But I'm kind of just curious, where you two are sitting on this. Do you think you're going to try this in Mercury when the whole set drops?
I guess with Mercury, if you're trying to do stuff like Inside Job and you don't really, like a lot of the times if you use Inside Job, the corp looks at it and doesn't res. So that I can see that this works with, so not as many cards will be resed if you're trying to maximize, like, well, I guess Inside Job is the main one. I always like using the console with the wrong person, so I might be looking for options to use it outside the, like, obviously the names. It's like, yes, probably very much Mercury's console. It's in like the identity art, like they're holding it. But yeah,
just very quickly,
Do
you
you
say.
think Essex it works best or not?
Well, I want to quickly ask if you could quickly explain what you mean by "oh, you see the names," because I think maybe not everyone knows why these two names are significant.
They are both. Oh, I'm really bad at ancient Greek and Roman mythology. I'm sorry, but I think they're both a very similar god or the same god. In one is Greek and one is Roman.
Yeah, I believe
It's
Hermes is
Hermes. It's the
Greek
Greek.
and Mercury is Roman,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's most often like the kind of messenger god is kind of the main
yeah,
thing. So
yeah.
you're
Which
zippy and you run around.
also I would really love it if people read Mercury's story because I actually think it's a really interesting story to think about. Like how Mercury feels, but like obviously in the story, their speed and everything and their, I guess, physical abilities is really kind of crucial to what they do. So, yeah.
Very cool. I guess Essexmcintosh, do you have a crim or maybe a non-crim you want to try Hermes out in on release potentially?
I'd be very keen to see how it slots into Enarg alongside a nice little happy ice destruction suite. But more generally, I do think it will find a home in Clem as sort of a meta call, not with not with Mercury. I don't think that they are particularly a good fit for the card. Because not because the abilities don't go together, but I'm really concerned that Mercury needs their source of economy, and traditionally that's the console slot in Criminal. Stuff like Penny Shaver's the big one at the moment, and theoretically you can sub out Penny Shaver and replace it with bankrolls and other such nonsense. But I really want that Penny Shaver.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I will say because I asked the question earlier. I will say I've been told by the better players that I'm around that this card is going to be absolutely busted in 419 because you basically get the two best crim IDs that aren't Andromeda and you get to staple them together onto one runner, and so that is just a lot of disruption that you can stack up. Which is something that like Crim is kind of lacking in current standard, and I think a big part of why they're not there is they just don't disrupt as well as something like Anarch does, and so this gives Crim some real oomph and bite to their disruption that's a big part of their game plan.
So it's kind of that they're asking the corp for money every turn, basically,
Yeah, yeah,
or
money and
every
time.
install.
Yeah,
But money and then also, and the lack of money is going to make it harder to res cards so that there'll be more unresed stuff. Is that
ex-
how they're thinking?
very much so. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly the way they're going about it.
I also think it's good to note, and it's very thematic that you've got it as the background image, that Tread Lightly is in faction, and if you're playing with a lot of unrezzed cards and you want to keep an unrezzed, I think it's a sure slot for the deck.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And like, hey, even if we go back to Mercury for a second, like, hey, just doing a 1 credit Tread Lightly and making it kind of a semi-expensive jailbreak, it's probably not the ceiling you want to go for, but Tread Lightly will probably see quite a bit of play in either decks that are Mercury decks or decks that are just trying to get more value out of Hermes, as you were saying, Essex. So I think that's a really good shout out. We are a little bit light on actual cards, so I might start moving us towards wrapping up. So with that, are there any things Maybe I'll start with you, Essex, that you're particularly looking forward to, that we've been teased on so far, or that you're thinking about from these crims, or from the great announcement article or the announcement article that outlined, very vaguely everything that's coming out over the next 10 days.
We haven't had a lot of information yet, but as with everyone, I'm excited to hear more about Threat tomorrow. And then I'm also personally in that sort of group that's keen to see what the Capybara criminal card is doing. I'd love to see a little bit more of those sorts of criminal bypass, avoid the eye sort of thing. We didn't get a lot last cycle, so something to be very annoying with our boomerangs as well will be very fun.
Yeah, I guess I might very quickly have you engage in some wild speculation. Capybara is a hardware that seems to start with the word when or whenever. Do you have any text you would want to fill in here?
Um, Whenever you encounter an ice, pay, blah, 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 bypass that ice, use this once per turn. Line, right?
Yeah, that sounds like a tool
That
that
would be
Mercury would really
amazing.
get along with.
I
Very
do
cool.
enjoy that the previous season article kind of says which which factions are getting identities and also what their names are. So that's really cool to kind of start imagining about.
The other thing I really liked, and I don't know if it's going to come into being, but Mercury's little write up has Jinteki straight up come and try to murder them. And I am very keen to get some sort of murder technology into Jinteki, some sort of massive battleship or something.
Well, we see HB doing some kind of salvo testing that looks like an orbital strike of some sort, so maybe we'll see Jinteki go pretty rough.
Yeah, they were definitely had lots of gunships and stuff in the story. Yes. Oh,
And
yeah.
Ginevra, are there things you're looking forward to in particular? I know you've you that can include stuff like narrative or factions, or maybe you also really want to know what this capybara does. I don't know.
I do like the capybara. I want to play with the capybara. Whatever. I like whatever it does. It's such cool art. I'm really excited to see how people like all of the art because I've seen it, and yeah, so that's really exciting to me to see. And I've read one of the stories, which is really cool, and I haven't read the other story yet, so I'm going to read that when it gets published.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I think the narrative team continues to get better and better at every release, and this is it was a good time. So I'm going to start doing the wrap up. I will shout out the StimHack forums are slowly coming alive again, and if you want to, there is a member there. I should actually call them out by name. Chaos of 99 doing a number crunch, trying to guess based on numbers that we have at the bottom, like Hannah Wheels here being card number card number 8. What this tells us about the other cards in the set. And as we get more and more cards, they'll keep trying to deduce more stuff. And I think it's also a fun way to track all the spoilers and known info. So that should be a lot of fun. I think a couple of these cards are already up on Netrunner DB. Let me go and quickly check before I I cash a check that they haven't quite. Okay, looks like maybe not just yet, but probably in the next day or two, if they're doing it like last year, we'll start getting some stuff up on the Netrunner DB. And I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. to chat about the new cards. We got, it sounds like quite a batch of stuff coming in, so that'll probably be a bit on the long side. I've got 2 guests already, but if people want to join, they can they can fill out this form, and I will try and fit you in at some point in the future. But yeah, we got spoilers, I think, every day until set release. So I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully y'all are too. Thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you again to Ginevra and Essex. It's been fantastic to have you all on. And I think with that, I'm going to call it a stream.
Thank you for having us. And I'd also like to say one of the cool things is that APAC Continentals is coming up.
Oh,
and
yes.
So all of the servers I'm in really, really want to start brewing immediately. And so that's also making it really exciting because they're like, all like, we've got to get ready. We've got to like it. So it's a really fun time.
That's good. Yeah, I'm glad. I definitely feel a little bit bad for APAC getting so little time, but I will remind everyone you can sign up for multiple Continentals this year, and if you are going to U.S. Continentals, Mox Boarding House, who's sponsoring the event, will be selling the Automata initiative there. So you can, and I would maybe even encourage you, if possible, to pick up the set there. So that we can start showing stores that Netrunner is worth stocking on their shelves. And yeah, I'm going to echo Izzy. Thank you for again, Ginevra and Essex. It was great to have you on. And thank you everyone for watching. And I will catch you all tomorrow with more exciting spoiler news. Have a good night and enjoy the data feeds.